Joining us now is Julia Bue-Said, who's from Hertfordshire. Julia is the Chief Executive at Advantage Travel Partnership. It's the UK's largest independent travel agent partnership. Julia, good afternoon to you.
Hi, Roberta. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for asking. Look, these new rules, which have come into effect today, what difference are they likely to make?
Quite a significant difference, actually. And what we have seen since the announcement of these rules, we've definitely seen a much more confident public who are really keen to put their travel plans into motion and really look to, at this time of year, really looking at the half-term break. So it's definitely inspired. It's definitely instilled more confidence. And a big barrier that we've been really working hard at lobbying with was this pre-departure test. So as your report said there, this was a test that you had to take before you re-entered the UK. Now that that's gone for the vaccinated, it will make it much easier and cheaper for families and everyone to travel.
And do we have some sort of date, an exact date perhaps, for when the dreaded PCR tests are going?
No, we don't, and I'm not really sure why. I can only assume that that's down to, the passenger locator forms obviously now need to be slightly tweaked to allow for, I assume, pre-booking of those tests as opposed to the PCR, or show that we have booked them in advance. So, but as it stands at the minute, the announcement we had a couple of weeks ago did allude to the fact that they were looking to try and get this in place for half term, but we still don't know, so still none the wiser on that.
And countries are scrapping quarantine hotels for passengers from the red list countries. Is there any reason to keep this system in place here?
I think it's a really, really good question and something that we've been calling out for some time now. And as you quite rightly said, Ireland has scrapped theirs. Australia is starting to phase theirs out. So from all the data we've seen, there really is no logical reason why managed quarantine hotels should and still needs to be in place, given there have been no high priority variants that have been found since travel restarted. So it's something that we really need to be thinking about. And actually, if the government do want to impose some form of quarantine, self-isolation at home. But fundamentally, we really need to see that red list reduced quite significantly now, given the data that is available.
Okay. Look, we've been through a pandemic. It is sometimes easy to forget the shock and the severity of what we've all had to live through. But the travel industry has really paid a heavy price for all this. Are we beginning to see green shoots of recovery? Are we beginning to see people with these lifting of restrictions, travelling or at least making plans?
Yeah, the last, as I said before, the last few weeks, certainly since the announcement, businesses is looking better. But what we mustn't forget is we cannot undo 20 months of no trade. I mean, that's how devastating it's been. With restrictions still in place, with the complexities, because there are so many complexities. We've not even touched on half of those now that are still in place, which fundamentally is why, as you know, I absolutely urge anyone looking to travel, they make sure they're booking through a professional travel agent, whether that's for business or leisure. It's so important because it's so easy to get caught out. But really difficult times ahead continue. So green shoots, but trading is tough. It's not back to where it needs to be. But we are hopeful and very, I'm looking outside the window today and it's absolutely pouring with rain. So it's absolutely, if that continues, then yes, I'm sure we'll all feel we want some sun.
And what's happening at the airports? You hear, somebody I knew came back on Saturday evening, 2.5 hours to get through passport control at Stansted. And I came through 2 weeks ago from Rome, Heathrow, straight through, not a problem. We seem to have problems somewhere and no problems somewhere else. It's really weird.
I do think, however, the issue is sometimes with the EGates. So as it stands at the minute, all your documentation to return back to the UK is checked, as you know, is checked by the airline upon leaving the destination. They have the responsibility for checking it. The documents are not checked 100% on departure and then 100% on arrival. That just hasn't happened for months now. So when we arrive back into the UK at the airport, if the EGates are working, and if they're all open, I had a colleague flew back on Sunday into Stansted and there were 4 gates open from, lots of flights coming in, and that's just appalling. So we need Border Force, which is obviously a government agency, not the airport, to make sure the e-gates are working, that the Border Force personnel are staffed if needed. But if we can, obviously, if you're travelling with children, you can't use the e-gates. But if the system is fully staffed, and fully manned, then there's no reason why you should have to wait 2 hours. Most flights, most departures, the feedback we're getting, they're very seamless, but inevitably, unfortunately, sometimes you do get bottlenecks in the system as well.
Julia, always a pleasure. Wish you well. Julia Bue-Said, who's the Chief Executive of the Advantage Travel Partnership.